Okay, in this exciting episode, we're going to see how to do the controller setup. So here, you see you could set these to different values. Oops, you can't. That would be kind of stupid. And you could use the mouse keys or even the joystick. This does not get the joystick accesses, but it does do it in the gameplay part, and I'll show you that. Alright, so first you have to add the system's collection generic, or the dictionary won't work because we're going to use a dictionary to store our key values. And what the dictionary is it takes an index, which we're going to use as a string here, which will be the name, like forward, backward, up, down. I mean, not up, down, just left, right. And a key code for that, which would be like up arrow, down arrow, left and right arrows. And this one is private to this script. This is the one we write and read from. And this one here is just a connection to this that the other scripts can read. It's a property, and we just made it read only, so the scripts can only read it, not change it. And here, we actually make a pause event by using this delegate for the pause action and the unpause action. So we, instead of just using a simple static variable, this actually causes events to happen in the other scripts, so you could pause and unpause the game. And we set that up here in the on enable and on disable. That hooks it into those delegates, and this disconnects it from the delegate. And this would be the event that is actually caused, tell the game to pause. And this would be the one that is called for unpause. Then we read the new dictionary and reload the controls into it so that the script can use it. And then we unpause the game. And an update here is where it actually does the pausing and unpausing. It jumps out of update when the game is paused, or if it doesn't have any controls set up, it jumps out. Otherwise, it can go. And as I said, this script can use the joysticks, just there's no way to set them up. This is the vertical and horizontal D-pad and regular analog control. For moving forward, you use the vertical, and down here for turning, you use the horizontal or D-pad X. And that is all set up over here in the project settings, input. You can see the horizontal and vertical, those are the normal ones. You know, just joystick axis, Y axis. And then the D-pad Y is a joystick axis, but it's the 6th axis, and D-pad X is the joystick axis of the 5th axis. And we don't need this escape one, so because we don't use that anymore, so we can get rid of it. Alright, now back to the script. Alright, so this was all done in another video, except for this one is our control button height, those little skinny buttons that you saw on the screen before. This texture was an example of how to put a background texture on the window. If I remember to do that later, I will show that to you. Alright, the current time is, because now we're going to make our own delta time so that the scrolling of the text is smoother, and we'll see that later. You've seen all of this in the other scripts, in the other videos or whatever. Alright, so down here in the awake, we're going to create the control dictionary, and let's go down to it. So in the create control dictionary, we create the default controls first, and the names of them, like pause, forward, backward, and then we give them the key codes of what keys are going to control it. So once we have all of those set up, then we actually go and see if there are user saved controls. So what we do is we loop through the default controls for each button, so we know how many we'll have, because you could just keep adding more and more buttons as much as you want. So this will always be able to read them in. So if it exists in the player preferences, then it reads it in, and since it was saved as a string, it converts back to a key code, doing this whole rigmarole here. And if it's not in there, then it uses the one out of the default controls and then converts it to a key code, because we cast it to a string just so that we can just pass it back to a key code to keep this part easier. And when we save the controls, it loops through the private key control dictionary, and it writes it out to the player preferences as a string. It takes the name, which is the key, and it saves the value, which would be the key code, cast to a string. Alright. Then here in Update, we look into the new controls dictionary for the pause button, and if it sees it, then it does the pause window. And if we're showing the window, we don't want anything else to happen down here in the update. Like if you have animations drawing and stuff, maybe you want them to pause with the game, or you could put them above here, like right in here, and then this would continue to run here, but down here would not. Okay, let's save that because that just screwed up everything. Alrighty. So here we're actually showing the window. If we're not on the home menu, which would be the main pause window, or the window ID is not the pause window, then we don't bother to accept the escape key, because we only want to use that to show and hide the pause window. Alright, so we were not showing the window, then we're going to show it. We set the timescale to 0, which freezes the game. We save the timescale that was running so that we can reset it later, and then we actually set the value to 0. And when we unpause the game, we take our stored value and stick it back into timescale, and then hide the window. On GUI is where a lot of the work is done. So if we're showing the window, then we're going to calculate our delta time so we could do the scrolling text for the credits window. And this is the first time it would have been shown since game paused is false. It comes into here, sets our scroll bar position to 0, which is where the control buttons are. They're going to go onto a scrolling window. Then we pause the game, and we fire the pause event if the scripts have hooked into it. Now, if we are showing the controller window, and there is a button selected, like forward or backward, then this will have the name of it in here. And we get the event, we store the current button, and then clear it so that when it goes down into the, I'll show you later, when it goes down into the routine to save the button, not save the button, man, I'm all over the place here. It just makes it so that it'll enable and disable the buttons right. Alright, so we get to see if it's a key event, and if it is, then we find a name, which would be forward, backwards, up, down, whatever, and we take that key code and store it in there in the dictionary. And then if it wasn't a regular key, then it goes to check to see if it was left shift or right shift, left alt, right alt, all those. And if it was not one of those, then it's going to check the joystick buttons. And there are 20 of those, numbered 0 to 19. And if it's not one of those, then we check to see if it was a mouse button clicked. And it's 0 through 6, so just like the joystick. And if it was none of those, then we set the current button back to the temp button, so we know that this button needs to be re-enabled and turned into that green color that we saw. Then it shows the window with all the proper settings set, and then the window is no longer showing. That means it is no longer paused. So if the game was paused, then we set it to false, which unpauses it, and then we fire the unpause event. And then the other scripts know that the game is unpaused. Right here, we show the pause window, and that was all done in the other one. This is where it would draw the background texture. or you could put it on each window individually. So maybe I'll show that. If not, just go watch the other video. Alright, so we go down here. One more. Show the controller window. Alright, so then we display the controller settings label at the top of the screen. At 28 pixels down, then we move down 50 more, making it 78. We begin a group that we're going to put all the buttons and scroll box and everything else in. And we move that over 10 and down to 78 level. And parcel off a portion of the screen for it. Then we get the scroll height, which will be all the keys in the dictionary, plus 1 because we need one for the reset to default button. Then we multiply by the controller height, the button height, plus 10 so we can get a space between each button. Then we create a box and put the scroll that we're going to put the scroll view into, just to make it look nicer. And here's the scroll view. So before we had set the scroll position to 0, so it knows it's at the beginning. And we begin the scroll view group, setting the rectangle to 0, 0. So it'll be inside the box at that level and at the scroll power position of 0. And this is how big we want it to be. So that's how high the scroll area will be, scroll height. And by 400, that's just a random number. So now we're going to actually place the buttons in the scroll view. So we move it down 10 pixels to get a nice border at the top. And then we loop through each control in the control dictionary, each key in there. And we get the name of it, which would be forward, backward, up, down, whatever. I don't know why I keep saying up and down because that's not in there. Anyway, this just shows how to not show a button if you just want to, you don't want anybody to be able to edit it. So you just continue to loop, jump out of it, it will just go down to here and start over again without showing any of that stuff. And here we put the label on the left side, which will be the name, forward, backward. And then show button or box has to be done. Where's the scroll button here? Here we go. Down here, what this does is, if we have chosen the key, like forward, we turn it green. But we use a box because if you're trying to capture the mouse input, like you want to use mouse 0 to jump, you wouldn't be able to get it because you just keep getting the click events from the button. So that wouldn't be very good. So we use a box there so we can get the mouse clicks in the on GUI event. Alright, so it goes back up here. So it shows it in the right place where we wanted it. And this is determining whether it's selected or not. The current button name equals the name, then we know that it has already been selected. And down here, it would use the box instead of the button. Then we move it down, the control button height plus 10, so we can add the next button right below it. And after all those are added, we add the reset default value button, and that just sets the current button to clear. We read in the default controls and put them back into this one, so that undoes all the editing that has been done. Then we close the scroll view and close the group. That's very important to do or the thing won't work right. And then down here is just the main back to options button. Clears out the value. It saves our new controls and then sets it back to the options window. And that's pretty much all there is to that. Then you can see it working over here. Right, go to the options controller settings. Right, so we wanted to do, say, mouse 0. Go back to here. Oops, we go back to here and you'll see that it's there. We reset the default, goes to space. Then we begin the game. And we run around here and I'm jumping with the space bar. Alright, so now I pause the game controller settings, and now I want to use the joystick. So I put joystick 0, go back to the game, and I know you can't see this, but now I'm using the analog stick and the jump. Now this is the D-pad and the jump, and that's pretty much what there is to that. So let's see that texture thing, see how that works. Alright, we have to go up very high here. Alright, so here we are. So we could do this. I have to make sure that I actually put a texture in there. Alright, so there's a background texture in here. It's this one. I know I'm a great artist. And you'll see it's on here. Right there, and it goes on all the windows. So if you only wanted it on one window, you would comment that one out and show it on the start menu here. And it won't be on any of the other windows. You can see it's on start, but it's not on any of these. And one other thing is, let's comment this one out. You could also, let's just copy this one, comment that one out. You could set this rectangle to different places on the screen. So we'll put it at 10, 10, 100, 100. Whoops. Great typing. And you will see that now it'll be in the upper corner. Come on, there, see, now it's over here. And it's on all the windows. And you could also, if you want to do different effects for it, not there are many exciting effects, but the stretch to fill is the default, but you could do scale and crop. You can see it scaled it to fit in the whole thing. And the other one, actually I should be doing this in the bigger one. It's easier to see. Yeah, let's do that other one again. Scale and crop. See, it scaled it and cropped it so it's not all on the screen anymore. And the last one is scale to fit. And you will see that now the picture is scaled to fit exactly on the window, and it leaves these edges here because this, if it had been the same exact size as the window, it would have fit right in here. But I just made this goofy thing that isn't the same size. Alright, hopefully this wasn't too boring and convoluted, and it helped somewhat, and I will catch you next time.